Sometimes you have 2.5 hour movies that just pass by in a, yes, and I'm going there, a flash. Funny story. This is the review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. First up, we have Lord Deathman, voice only. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, Grandmaster.
Uh, Next up, we have Mr. Taylor First. How are you, man?
Doing good, thanks.
And dropping in last moment, we have Merv. How are you?
All right, a little bit of technical difficulty, but hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, sound and vision is no problem. Today we're going to talk about DC Studios, The Flash. But before we do, I'm going to ask you all to help us. Like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you really can't get enough of us, you can join our ranks. Go to Sakar at sakar.freeforms.net, set up that account, get to know us. And yes, you can join us in our reviews or podcast. We would love to have you on the show. Consider this your final warning. After this point, the spoilers are incoming. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, go do that first and then check out our review. In The Flash, Barry Allen wants to right some wrongs by running very fast. And if you're thinking I'm talking about the CW show now, you wouldn't be wrong, but this time it's really a movie. Yeah, I'm a bit lame. So let me just get to our amazing panel. We're going to do 3 rounds. First, our quick thoughts. Then we do a deeper dive into our likes and dislikes for this film. And we end with a rating. And you never know if any afterthought comes up as well. So let's just begin. So we're going to start with Mr. Lord Deathman. Lord Deathman, how did you see this movie long ago or not? And can I have your quick thoughts on this film?
Well, I saw this movie on Friday, and my quick thoughts about the movie without, you know, is I'm somewhat mixed on it. I'm somewhat mixed on it. I think it's on the more on the good side than it is on the problematic side. But at the end of the day, I did find myself having mixed feelings about certain things as the movie was going along. Um, I feel like I have a ton to say about this movie, but I'm going to try to keep it short. Um, what I did really like and what really stood out to me was Ezra Miller's performance. I think they did a really great job playing Barry Allen. And I also think David Muschetti's direction is pretty crisp in this film. But they really had the weight of the whole DCEU on them in this film. And I think you can feel it. And the film suffers a little bit for that.
Yeah. Well, Taylor, you just came fresh out of theater. How did you see this movie? Your quick thoughts, please.
Yeah, well, it's not a bad movie. It's a pretty good movie overall. But I agree with Lord Deathman. I have mixed feelings about it overall, and in the big picture of the DCU and the state of DC Studios right now. But the movie itself, again, I was a bit pleasantly surprised. I thought it was actually a little bit better than I was expecting. I was, fearing the worst. Mm-hmm. But overall, I thought it was good. I agree that Ezra Miller, he did a good job, and all the rest of the cast did a good job. There was a whole lot of stuff stuffed into this movie. And that's part of the whole multiverse thing, which we'll get into here in a second. But I think they pulled it off for the most part fairly well. I mean, it was an entertaining movie. It was a decent superhero movie overall.
Merv, let me have your quick thoughts.
Yeah, I had a good time with this. I don't want to say pleasantly surprised because I'm a Flash fan, so it makes sense that I would enjoy it at least a little bit. But I really liked a lot of the performances, a lot of the character decisions. The plot was honestly kind of straightforward in what it was trying to achieve, and I thought it came across pretty well. There was some issues with it, but all things considered, especially in regards to a DC film nowadays, I think it was pretty good. I had a good time watching it. I don't regret it at all.
Well, personally, I thought it was okay-ish. I wasn't too impressed. I, I, I think they could have cut at least half an hour, 45 minutes out of the movie, and it would have flown a little bit better. The flow would have been better. There was a whole side story which did not make any sense to me, except it had some comedic value. But yeah, overall, I thought it was not that great. It wasn't bad. It was quite entertaining. I enjoyed myself watching it, but to me, it was a little bit long. And yeah, that's DC's problem lately. They have a little bit too much fat on the movie, and that's rich coming from me. I understand that, but yeah, it's they really need to work on their editing and their writing, to be honest. But that's just my quick thoughts. Taylor, your likes and dislikes. Do you have any dislikes about this movie?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I thought they executed it fairly well. I think I'm having a brain cramp, like he said. It was fairly straightforward plot, but when you're dealing with a time travel multiverse, as Michael Keaton said, giant hot mess bowl of spaghetti, it does get muddled and complicated. And don't think about it, because it will make no sense whatsoever. But that's okay, because I don't like over analyzing comic books anyway. There's no point to it. The point is entertainment. So overall, I think it went pretty well. I've seen some people say that the beginning was too dragged out or too boring or something, but I thought it followed the 3-act movie formula pretty well with the establishing and then the build up and then the climax. I thought it was put together pretty good. As far as negatives go, I mean, like I said, there nothing that I really point at that was completely negative, other than it's a problem that DC has had for a long time. Matter of fact, since it started the DCEU, it's just like kind of a day late and a dollar short at this point. I mean, we've seen What If, we've seen No Way Home, we've seen Multiverse of Madness, we've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, we've seen all these multiverses over and over now, and it's like, oh yeah, they did that too. Almost as good as the other stuff that did it, did it better, and that's partially my bias, because I'm not a fan of multiverses to begin with. I've talked about that before. It just gets too messy and too muddled, and it becomes a crutch. And God knows what's going to happen, because James Gunn keeps saying that this is resetting the DCU for the future, but I don't see how, because I think it's going to be a completely different universe, and I wish he would just say that. But he's also going to keep Waller, so okay, fine, same actress playing Waller, but it's a different universe. But again, I'm digressing, because I'm getting into the outside stuff, the DC Studios stuff. The movie itself, like I said, overall entertaining. I know a lot of people will probably complain about some of the graphics, some of the CGI. I didn't have a problem with it, because I don't care about CGI. I'm used to much worse special effects. But I can see where some people would say, yeah, that kind of looks like a video game fight there. didn't look quite real. But again, that didn't bother me that much. A little upset with they put some people in it and then didn't use them. Anya Trower as Feyor didn't even have a line. Kind of a waste, I would think. I thought the Supergirl stuff was good. I thought the actress did fine. I thought the character was fine. Different version of Supergirl than what I've personally seen before, but that's fine. You're dealing in the multiverse stuff, so you're going to have different versions. So again, overall, the movie was okay. Entertaining, solid superhero movie, but nothing special. And, not as far as I can say, it doesn't really set any stage going forward, and I don't know what DC's doing going forward.
Okay, let me just ask you this, and I'm going to ask all the other panel members as well. Would you be looking forward to seeing it again, or could you do without it? seeing it again?
I mean, I'll see it again. I'm not going to see it in theaters again. That's for sure. I'll watch it again someday, but I'm not going to go out of my way, and it wouldn't kill me if I never saw it again.
Okay, Merv. We had I have some critique about this movie, and I already mentioned that in my short, quick thoughts, and I'm going to throw it at you. There's a whole side story where one Barry Allen, let's just get the people really riled up. The 616 Barry Allen loses his power, and the other guy, Barry Allen, gets the power, and then they electrocute him like 4 times or something, and then he gets his power back. There's a short period of 30, 45 minutes where that happens. It literally does not drive the plot forward in any way. I don't see why they did that. So just to have some cool action scene with lightning and chemicals and stuff like that, but there was no. I didn't see the point, and that's what I meant when I say they could have cut at least half an hour, 45 minutes out of this movie, or at least edited it differently, and it really dragged the movie. Like I say, this wasn't like Flash. It was very slow and very long and very boring, especially in the middle part where they did nothing but find Bruce Wayne and then Supergirl, and that's it. But yeah, that could have been different in my view. How do you see that? And give me your negatives and positives about this movie as well.
Yeah, in regards to Flash losing his powers, I think the primary reason is to just keep him in place for a few minutes. You know what I mean? Because if he still had his powers, the second he realizes like this world's off, he's just gonna, do the whole time bubble thing and go back and see what happened, or go see whoever that the Dark Flash that like pushed him, like who was that guy? You know what I mean? He'd probably do that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Like it could have been trimmed down, I'm sure. There's a lot of the movie that could have been trimmed down, and there's a lot of it that could have felt a little more expanded. Like I felt like we barely scratched the surface of Supergirl, and she was cool, but it was like you don't really know much about her. You didn't really need to, but it's just like you kind of wanted, at least I wanted to by the end of the film. So there was some of that. And
yeah, Sasha Calle is one of the best things about this movie, together with Michael Keaton.
I agree. I'm sorry.
In my view,
right? Yeah. And just overall pros and cons, like like pros, I thought one, despite all the out of this movie stuff, Ezra Miller did a fantastic job. I thought he was great as both versions of the Flash, the annoying younger one and the somewhat wiser older one. Michael Keaton, I grew up with Michael Keaton as Batman, so that hit all the member berries for me. I loved every scene he was pretty much in, outside of his opening scene as like the hobo in the kitchen with one flip-flop on. I thought that was a little bit of an odd way to introduce this character. I get that like maybe he'd become a hermit, but it didn't really jive with him in the rest of the movie. So that kind of felt like really odd. Even whenever it first happened, I felt my my face go like, is this Batman? Like this is just a weird way to introduce the character again. And then Supergirl I loved. I thought those 3 things were great. The soundtrack, particularly in the way of the themes, hearing old Batman score again, and then Wonder Woman's theme and all that stuff, that all sounded pretty good. The big con for me, and I differ from Taylor here, like I thought the CGI was pretty distractingly bad in parts, and that won't make or break a movie, but like I thought maybe with the raining baby sequence, I thought maybe it's just going to be this one scene, but it was a constant throughout the entire film. Every time they had to like digitally make a person, it was like they forgot what people looked like, and it was just really weird, so that was like pretty jarring for me throughout the film.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a real dog either.
I'm sorry?
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a real dog either.
Right. The dog at the end was also like...
Yeah, or in the beginning, yeah.
I think the whole budget went to that dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they showed the dog again at the end in like an extended falling comedy sequence. So
Yeah, they saw Multiverse of Madness and they say, let's Scooby-Doo this.
right. So that, like, I kept hoping that like maybe it was just this one scene where they had the CGI budget cut, but and I don't even know that it was a budget cut. By the end, I started to wonder if it was a conscious decision to make all the people look this awkward and unrealistic. I mean, it basically felt like an early 2010s video game. Like, that's what I kept thinking to myself. Like, this looks like a cutscene from a video game from 10 years ago. So that, I mean, I have to put it on the cons list. Again, probably similar to Taylor, that won't ruin a movie for me because, you know, CGI has not always been great. You can go back and watch some late 90s, early 2000s movies with whenever CGI was in its borderline infancy, and it was pretty bad. But it doesn't really ruin a movie for me, but it is a con, especially in today's age where we know the technology exists to make it look better. So, but that's really the biggest con for me. That was the biggest, like, nagging factor, other than, like, we didn't really have time. I liked that we got to develop the heroes, but we didn't really spend any time with Zod or Fiora, who, again, like a lot of people, she was my favorite thing about Man of Steel. So I was really excited when I saw her briefly, and then that was pretty much the only time that you saw her in the film. And then really the Dark Flash came out of nowhere. Like, it was a character, and then, like, we saw the potential there once you put all the pieces together, but we didn't really spend time with the villain of the Dark Flash. Again, maybe we didn't need to, but it was just like, it felt like the antagonist really got the short end of the stick on the film. But overall, I enjoyed it.
Okay, so let me ask you, will you ever watch it again, or can you do without it?
I will watch it again. Again, probably not in theaters, but I so rarely go to the theater second time anymore anyway. So that's not really saying all that much. But I would have no problem watching it again. I probably will fast forward through a lot of the fat, as you say.
Yeah. Okay, I can start now about tight costumes in the crotch, but I have a different question for Lord Deathman before he can rant or praise this movie. Out with the bad flag, in with the bad nipples? Question mark?
Yeah, everything old is new again. I'm not sure what the point of that was. I don't know why they did it, and I'm
Because
not.
they can.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I
That's
don't
the
know.
whole problem with DC for years.
Because they can. Yeah, it seemed like an inverted No Way Home, like where every cameo, at least the cameos I think in No Way Home were useful. They were logical, but in this they're like completely random. So I'm not even sure if like the sequel to the Batman will now have George Clooney, replacing Rob Pattinson. I have no idea what to expect from that. It's even like, I can't even comment on it. It's like, okay, that happened, and now I have to move on with the rest of my life.
Yeah. But were there any negatives for you, or do you have only praise for this fantastic movie?
Praise.
To quote Jimmy Gunn.
I'd like to just take a step back for just a minute, just to kind of put this movie into context, right? We've been watching The Flash on television for almost a decade now, right? We've seen the story of Barry Allen, we've seen the critical plot points, we've watched him in a coffee shop, we've seen him do forensics. We've been watching Grant Gustin do this, and very well for the most part, on television for a long time. The Flash is probably one of my top 5 DC characters as far as Justice Leaguers go. So, and it was probably a year after The Flash debuted on television that DC said, we're doing a shared universe. And guess what? The release date for a Flash movie is something 2018, right? So we've been waiting that long to see this movie, while the TV show pretty much just eclipsed the whole idea of The Flash in terms of like relevance as a film. right?
Yeah.
So they were really, this movie started with the Flash being in leg irons. And I said, I hate to do it, but a part of me has to say, is this movie going to be worth all of that waiting and all of that planning and changing planning and controversy that we went through to get it? And absolutely not. This was not the penultimate Flash film or whatever, the ultimate Flash film that we were going to see. I think just as a story and a movie, if not for the pieces with Batman and Supergirl, this could have been a bigger budget episode of The Flash with nicer set pieces and bizarrely disturbing visual effects in some places. I tend to agree with Merv. The visual effects were really distracting, and this comes from someone who is not a visual effects snob in the least. But some of those, visual effects just look creepy. The babies look creepy. The people in the Speed Force look creepy. I'm like, I don't want to see them anymore. And
Can I say that the special effects on the CW show are actually better than they were in this movie? And that's a big statement. I know.
10 Snyder fans have just put you on their like most wanted list.
That's
You'll be
fine, but I don't care.
I'm
I'm far away.
In some places, I have to say you're absolutely right. The television show did do better special effects. And there are some really good special effects in the film. But if you look at the end of the movie and you're actually reading the credits like the nerd I am, you'll see that there was probably like 14 different visual effects houses that worked on this film. So obviously some of them were better than others when it came to putting together some of the sequences and scenes and effect shots. So that was a huge problem for me. But getting on with the movie in terms of my thoughts, again, very mixed on it. I loved the performances by Ezra Miller. I loved Sasha Kaye, and I loved seeing Michael Keaton again a lot more than I thought I would. Although I thought this sort of wig and mustache kind of thing they were doing when they first introduced him was a little ridiculous. I was like, this looks fake, and it really is adding absolutely nothing in the story to see sloppy Batman having a kitchen fight. It felt like they wanted to do the Quicksilver thing from the X-Men movies, a
Yeah.
couple,
No, I think it was just a pasta setup.
right. I didn't really get that. But again, it was hard to care about Supergirl. And again, as a female superhero in one of these movies that's going to take a lot of flack from a certain portion of the audience, they do nothing to set her up. At least in Man of Steel, we're seeing Kal-El in his childhood and they're doing all of that kind of stuff. But now it's like insert replacement Superman as woman. And that's all you know about Kara Zor-El, right? That this is basically the female version of Superman. If someone who really has a problem with those kinds of gender swaps wanted to, this is the perfect situation to attack because it is literally a substitution on a character where they bring nothing else to the table. I liked seeing Michael Keaton's Batman only because I'm a huge fan of Batman '89, and they got me right. They're like, oh, pull as hard as you can on those strings for Lord Deathman, and I was like, yeah, this is working. I love the acrobatics. I just love the fact that he's kind of a low tech character compared to what all of these other characters are doing in the film, and he's solving problems pretty practically. I'm like, yeah, let's get back to basics here. I'm not asking Keaton to step in the tights again and do another movie, but it was this comeback for him was worth it, and I think it cemented how great that era of DC was. But like certain themes in the film, you can't correct your mistakes. No matter how many times you have to move forward. Thematically, this film is really rich. As a director, someone he was keeping his eye on the ball, Muschietti, in terms of the themes, the way the story was unfolding. I thought that stuff was pretty good, but again, not too much better than a really strong episode of the CW Flash, right? Barry, stop messing with the timeline, right? It's embarrassing how much is not new in this film as far as the character of the Flash goes. It's embarrassing. But I do, the last thing I want to say in my detailed analysis is about the ending. where you get, cameo palooza with Nicolas Cage and Christopher Reeves. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the film. Sorry. Helen Slater comes back. And I wanted to like get stone faced and stoic and be like, oh man, I don't care about any of this. This is fan service. But you know what? They got me. they got me because I was like, wow, this is kind of like sort of my childhood on a little movie reel here at the end of the film. And if you don't take it as a part of the story, for which it makes very little sense, honestly, but if you just take it as this little love note to, this love letter to DC films and the history of DC and films, seeing Nicolas Cage go up against the Spider, which has all been in treatments that hardcore fans know about. Yeah, that stuff really, I was like, wow, it just turn that into like a little advertisement for DC and take it off the end of the Flash, and that'll be awesome, right? I'll give you metal horns for that because that was really good. But in the context of the film, I was like, this is just they're cramming the No Way Home pieces at the end of the film. So at the end of the day, my final assessment is very mixed on this film. I think there was a little bit more to like, maybe 52% to the like 48% of the film that just didn't work for me. It was too long, as you say. It completely dragged out, and I have no shame in saying that there were a couple moments where I actually just closed my eyes. Where you're like in the theater and you're like you had a full night's sleep, but you might be dipping out just a little bit, and then you wake up like 2 minutes later and you're like, oh, what happened? What did I miss? But you can't use your remote to go back. So yeah, I had a few of those moments. So it was definitely dragging in places.
Yeah,
But,
well,
yeah.
that's my point exactly. So yeah, I'm not gonna repeat that. So
Yeah, but this movie should have been a Cyborg movie or a Green Lantern movie, right? Like even with Green Lantern's, notorious failure in the theaters, these two movies should have been made before a Flash movie got made, just because of the Flash's exposure on TV. How badly hyped this film has been. I mean, look, better than The Dark Knight. Stephen King writing tweets. It's the best hero movie I ever saw. Tom Gunn. Yeah, well, I'm calling him Tom Gunn. Top Gun. Tom Cruise is saying, this is is this the only superhero movie you've ever seen, dude? Because where are you coming from with that? They really, really put this film in leg irons, in terms of it having a chance to actually be a good film. Yeah.
yeah, I was entertained. That's all I can say. And I will keep it at that. It's all been said, and I already mentioned my critique on it. Taylor.
Yeah, just to echo everything that Lord Deathman said. First of all, Michael Keaton, great, but again, stupid. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if he's all haggard and hobo-ish when they first meet him? Okay. Yeah.
That lasts for 5 minutes.
Right, exactly. That lasts for 5 minutes. Kara Zor-El hating humanity lasted for 2 minutes. The guys we're saving don't know we're on their side. That lasted for 30 seconds. Then they realized that we're on their side. Yeah. And again, like I said, just to go back to the CW show, we've seen Barry go back and try to save his mother. We've seen Flashpoint, and they did it over a longer period of time and had more depth to it than what they were able to do in a movie, because they did it over 6 shows or something. How the Arrowverse would do those events where they would do a whole week. Every show was part of the same story, and Flashpoint was one of them. And we've seen that done better. And again, just like DC just can't crack the nut. Hopefully James Gunn will crack the nut, but just like the first Suicide Squad, it was, hey, they did some really cool stuff in Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's shove some of that into this Suicide Squad movie, and it was just the same thing here. Hey, Endgame, they went back in time and fixed stuff, and they talked about how timelines split and so stuff. Let's do that in this movie. No Way Home had characters from other franchises appear. Let's do that in this movie too. Yeah, do your own thing, guys. Come up with something fresh. Like I said, what they did wasn't bad. It was just okay. We did it again. You guys did it too. Good job. Wasn't you didn't completely fall on your face doing, copying a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. We're gonna move to Lord Deathman.
I just wanted to say, give a quick follow-up note. I know it sounds like I've been treating this film pretty harshly in this review, but I stand on my criticism that it's a very mixed bag as far as this goes. And I just wanted to come back and answer your question as to whether I would see this film in the theaters again, and it's a no. I would not go back to see this, and I will see certain films that I enjoy twice if I can catch a matinee a little later on. Maybe I'm with a couple of friends I didn't see it with the first time or whatever have you, but not this one. And the next time I see it would probably be on streaming. This is not going to get added to my DVD collection or Blu collection, as small as that collection is. And when I see it on streaming, I'll be fast forwarding through a bit of it.
Yeah. Well, let's just say we didn't review it, but I watched Across the Spider-Verse like 2 weeks ago. In the opening weekend, I went out, and that's how you make a multiverse movie. That one movie was fantastic, and compared to this, yeah, my God. Anyway, Merv.
Just to add some positively on the compliment sandwich here. I did really enjoy the emotional scene in the supermarket at the end with Barry and his mom. I thought that was pretty well done. And even though it was meaningless and really adds a big old question mark to the overall DCEU, whenever George Clooney walks up, that line from Barry, I think you said something like, "Who the F is this?" That got the loudest laughter in the audience because everyone was just like, what the like, where did this come from? So even though it was really stupid, it was a laughter hit. So
I don't hate George Clooney by no means, so I enjoyed watching him again as Bruce Wayne, and it added to the confusion, but something was off already when his father all of a sudden looked up in the footage. But anyway, yeah. So let's just do a rating. I'll begin with you, Merv. Kick things off in a high note.
I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I mean, like the CGI really pulls it down to where I consider a 6 maybe. But at the end of the day, like I actually had a good time with this. Now, whether or not, after 3 rewatches, if I'm totally over the Michael Keaton and the Supergirl goes nowhere in any other film, and it's just like maybe it falls off in a year from now. But as of right now, I just saw it today, coming out of the theater. I give it a good 7 out of 10.
Well, moving on to someone else who saw it just today, Taylor.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth, but I agree with Merv. I'll give it a pretty strong 7 out of 10. One thing I want to mention real quick: the post-credit scene with Aquaman. Stupid. Why?
If you haven't seen the movie, sorry.
And I'll go back to my theme. MCU had drunk Thor. Let's throw drunk Aquaman into the post-credit scene. There was no reason for it. It wasn't funny either. So there you are. 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Lord Deathman, you had some time to chew on this.
Sadly, I cannot be as generous as my other panel members, my esteemed colleagues. This is a 5.5 for me. So a little better than the halfway mark in terms of a good film. And I just have to be somewhat harsh about it because this is a film that had a lot of potential. And I think that it really lived up to that potential. Did I like seeing people like Ezra Miller play one half of their own comedy duo? I was like, okay, this is kind of fun because this is the type of character that the Flash is. He's a comedian, so this makes sense rather than humor being shoved on a character where it wouldn't make sense. So I thought, yeah, that all of those kinds of things worked in terms of the dramatic pieces. I think Merv is right. I echo his sentiments about a lot of the dramatic work in the film that could have been hokey and come out bad, but because of the strength of the actors, it came out extremely well. But visual effects, poor, a lack of originality in this plot in terms of telling a Flash story. Again, that just being weighed down by what's going on in other media. I think that really justifies the 5.5. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10, and that may be unexpected, but it was just entertaining, and I can't go to the bad marks because it was entertaining enough. At least that it's a plus towards all the other recent DC movies I've seen since the Batman. It was at least entertaining, and I enjoyed myself for 2.5 hours. I would have preferred if it was only 2 hours, but still. So 6 out of 10 for me, and that's only because it was entertaining. Because I have a lot of issues, but I already spoke about it. Taylor, you have an afterthought.
Yeah, I will give them credit. The ending did surprise me. I did not expect it to happen where they failed to stop Zod in that particular universe reality. I saw after the fact, yeah, that makes sense. But I did not expect it to wind up that way. I thought they would figure out some other way of, we can save everybody or something more to that effect. So that did surprise me.
Mm-hmm. Lord Deathman?
Yes, I was going to say this is probably the second superhero film where the main character actually lost. Or I think I'm thinking Civil War, which was not a win for that group of superheroes. And this Flash film does have the distinction of a protagonist actually losing the struggle that they initially set on what they wanted to rectify, what they wanted to fix, even defeating the villain. So, but it had to work out that way because a part of me, when I was watching the Zod versus Supergirl and Batman and Flash sequences, I was like, yeah, there's no way you're going to beat an army of Kryptonians that have arrived on Earth. I'm like, what? I don't care what universe this is. There's just it stop an army full of Supermen.
That will conclude this review of Champions for the Flash. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out. Like and share this review and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at sucardofreeforums.net. We would love it if you join us. Be on the lookout for a review series for Secret Invasion that starts next week. I've been teasing that for months, but now it's going to happen. And Ahsoka is on the horizon as well as a movie review about a blue bug. For now, I thank you also on behalf of our champions and wish you to be safe and be well. Bye.